There you go. And Greg has asked tonight that if you have questions, can you pop them in the chat, and Danny will act as question master at the end, and we'll help go through them and present them back. Without taking any more of your precious time, I would sincerely love to offer the floor to Greg Canty of Furzon Communications. All right, Greg.
Yeah, thank you so much. How are you doing? And that work that you were referring to, we were working on a social media strategy for District 71. And, you know, you were telling me initially that you had different target audiences, and you pretty much knew that a lot of people were coming from a professional place. So when it came to social media, we were saying that, you know, if it is professional use and everything else, that LinkedIn had to be the #1 social network. So I think that brought us to today. I'm from Fusion Communications. We're a communications agency, and that's the full mix of communications, you know, everything from branding, PR, advertising, direct marketing, and of course, social media, and even podcasting, believe it or not. So social media would be in the mix for nearly all of our clients. And we invariably end up doing, in particular in a B2B type scenario, specific training for the teams of companies when it comes to using LinkedIn and using LinkedIn proactively. So I know there's a lot of people on the call, so I'm going to go into presentation mode. And what I'd like you to do, I think everyone has an idea of how we use LinkedIn in particular. I just want to ask you before we start to allow yourself to be open to using it in a different way than you've ever used it before. And with that in mind, I'll rock on with the presentation. And as we said, you know, fire the questions in. I get to everything, and we might bank them at the end. So Danny Banks will help to bank the questions. That might be good. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I want to introduce you to a character. This guy is called Ned. He's a little bit robotic, but he reckons he's got LinkedIn absolutely mastered. People send him a connection request, and he presses the accept button, and it's very efficient. He's on a Toastmaster session, and he spots someone who's quite interesting, and he does a little search on LinkedIn, and he sends them a connection request. He presses the button, and off it goes. And if they reply, that's wonderful. So it's very, very efficient use of social media. It's a little bit robotic. And to be honest with you, I think we don't live in a robotic world. Too many of the robots are taking over everything. So during the course of the presentation, I want to introduce you to a few ideas. And at the very, very end of the presentation, I'll introduce you to Ned's brother, a character called Ted. So off we go. By way of introduction, and I'm kind of looking at the faces, so a lot of you will be my vintage. And media and reaching people before used to be a very simple thing. I started off media in 13. This is what I tell people anyway. I had my own little business, my own newspaper round. And before I went to work every day, people had a newspaper through their letterbox. So whether it was school, college, or work, there's a good chance you were informed as to what was going on. And a lot of the time, we're trying to get people's attention about things, be it our business or organization like Toastmasters, or, you know, maybe reaching out to someone yourself. And of course, that's got a lot more complicated, but there's a lot more opportunity as well, because now we don't get our news from one place, we get it in multiple places. And yeah, that and social media is obviously one of those places. So in a way, it's easy to get information to people, but then again, it's not so easy at all because it's such a busy place. It's difficult to get anyone's attention. Really, really difficult. And even on social media, some of the conversations we were having with the team, even about something like Facebook, which I know a lot of you use for your organization, what's happening there is the algorithms are working very, very hard to make sure that a lot of you aren't seeing the posts unless, you know, you're writing a check to advertise on those channels. And that's more and more is becoming the case. So a lot of the time we're missing out. So besides being time poor and some of the social media channels working hard, it's even difficult on those channels to kind of reach through with people. That's kind of the context of the background. But for the most part, I became an accountant when I was 17 on the South Mall of Cork. I was thrilled. Yeah, as a my fellow Corkonians here will understand that Cork, and I was so proud. I thought it was like Wall Street. That was during the 80s, and a lot of our clients at that time in a deep recession were bleeding. So I'm always very conscious of very, very cost-effective ways of making things happen. And LinkedIn specifically, and social media generally, while advertising is creeping into it, we can do an awful lot on these channels without having to write a check at all. And a lot of the conversations that I'm having with you today will be all around that kind of that cost-free model. So it's really, really good. And I think we can use it effectively for Toastmasters. My big passion was music. I happened to see Phil Lynott and Thin Lizzy playing in the City Hall in Cork when I was 14. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. And what I've discovered during the course of our work with Fusion and everything, I've come across people all of the time who are passionate about their thing, whatever that is. Insurance people, accountants, PR people, they're all really passionate about what they do. And sometimes that's a very difficult thing to communicate on a website, even to communicate it on your LinkedIn profile, to communicate it on newsletters or whatever. But I find social media is built perfectly for passion and communicating it. The minute you let someone interact and put posts out online, and because it is social, it allows you to kind of lose some of that formality. Yeah, that passion is infectious. So when I see people posting online, often you get a sense of, my God, you really are an expert in this area. But even beyond your expertise, I can sense that this means an awful lot to you. So there's a good advantage to any of the social media channels, and LinkedIn is no exception to it. I did manage to fulfill my dream, and I had a chain of record stores in Ireland when people were actually buying records and things like that. So that was really good. I was in practice. I had my own business, but I also worked for a subsidiary of Guinness in Ireland, and I went to work for Guinness in Ireland. And it was a bit funny at that time. But we were being told by everyone, it was all about, big business, big advertising budgets. If you weren't producing things in a mass scale, well, it was kind of pointless. Now, we never bought into that. When I was with the subsidiary Guinness in Cork, we were manufacturing our own soft drinks and things like that. And we were always selling them on the basis that they were being sourced locally and all that kind of thing. And so many years later, and sorry, even when I was working with Guinness, we had products like Smithwick's and even products like Harp. And the marketing people and the production people, there was serious conversations being had about killing some of these products because they weren't selling enough. And that was okay. Some of them survived, like Smithwick's, for example. And during the last recession, 2009, 2010, something strange happened. You were going down to your local supermarket when everyone was broke and we were all up against the rope, so we had no money. And these craft beers started appearing on the shelves of the supermarket. And there were brands you'd never heard of from places you'd never been to. And it wasn't lager anymore, it was IPA. What the hell was IPA? India Pale Lager. Wow, what was all this about? India Pale Ale, sorry. And then the following week, there was even more of them, and they were all quite expensive. So even when we had no money, we started showing an interest in these products that were more expensive. And we kind of liked them because they were authentic and genuine, and they weren't kind of mass produced. And like that, anything that's authentic and genuine, I think we've graduated to. And I think part of that at that time was because we'd lost faith in all the big brands. So anytime, anywhere where you see someone's genuine, authentic voice breaking through, we're kind of buying it. Yeah, you mightn't be from the biggest company or anything like that, but we know this expression, people do business with people. So when you see that authenticity and that genuine passion for what you do coming through, yeah, I'll vote for you. Maybe not against the big brands necessarily. Yeah, ironically now in Guinness, that company that I used to work for, with that brand that, they were giving serious consideration to killing, Smithwick's, now they're kind of pushing that out as a craft beer. And don't worry, I'll make all this relevant to LinkedIn shortly. I read a great book by a guy called John Jantz. It was called The Referral Engine. And what he said was 80% of business happens through referrals or word of mouth. You go, yeah, okay, I accept that. I've heard that a lot of the time. You know, we believe that in our business or whatever. It's okay. And the whole point of the book was that if 80% of your business comes from referrals or word of mouth, well, he said, well, then you need to look in the mirror and think about your referral engine. What is it that makes referrals happen? You say, okay, this is quite an unusual concept. And you think, well, if I do great work, then the people I do the great work for might go out and tell everyone. That's kind of like how it works. And that's definitely how it works sometimes, you know, word of mouth recommendations, all that kind of thing. But a lot of the time, I think referrals don't happen in that way at all. And then, of course, there's kind of brute force types of referrals. You know, if you refer Sky to one of your neighbors, well, you might get a €50 voucher, or you might get a commission on something or whatever. That's kind of like, you know, hard ways of getting a referral. But I think a lot of the way referrals happen is that there's a funny currency of people sharing information, solving problems. Do you ever find you're in a conversation with a friend, you know, or a work colleague, and you say something like, oh my God, I need a new website for my business, you know, would you know of anyone? Or, you know, I need to get some work done in the back garden, would you know of any gardeners? You know, I've got a plumbing situation I need, so would you know of anyone? And we have an instinct, and whether it's in a work scenario or in a friend scenario, we have an instinct to try and help someone. And what you will do is, if you have that name in your head, you will give it to that other person. Okay. And a typical scenario during COVID might have been, oh my God, I'm, you know, fed up working on the kitchen table. My back is broken. Would you know of a good chiropractor? If you're that person's friend, or even a work colleague, or a client, or a supplier, you'll give that person that name. And the reason I'm saying that is, in a social media context, it's really important, no matter who you are, that you're all of the time messaging, that people are aware of what you do, who you work for, what you're passionate about, what your expertise is, to the extent that people have that name in the back of your head. Oh yeah, I know that guy Greg, he's good on social media, whatever. That they have that name. You might never even have had a reason to go to that person, but they're nice enough. You see them posting things online and you have an idea of what they do. So this is an argument for whatever social media channel you're using, either for your organization, your company, or yourself, that you're posting on a regular basis and making it known what you do, what you're passionate about, the things that you like, etc. Yeah, including how great Toastmasters is. Okay. So Greg left that accounting world and he joined Deirdre Infusion in 2003. Deirdre's my other half, by the way, and she's sitting to my right on the screen. Been deliberately telling you a story. Yeah, and we're in Dublin and Cork, great company, etc., etc. Then, of course, social media came along towards 2009, 2010, and we introduced that into our communications mix. Yeah, and we've done really, really well. We've grown the business, and even during COVID, we've extended our team. Someone extra in graphic design and someone extra on the PR team. I'm deliberately telling you a story. I told you about the newspapers. I told you about the record stores. I told you about passion about music. I told you about working at Guinness. I'm deliberately telling you stories. I do exactly the same on social media when I'm posting things. A very clever man said something very, very interesting about business. And it's about the world that I exist in, marketing, PR, communications, all that kind of thing. And sometimes we get lost in our jargon. And he said something very, very simple. Your brand is what other people say about you when you're not in the room. Now, okay, that's kind of very profound. I get what you're saying. But what do you do about it? Toastmasters, what's that about? And I guarantee you, if I walked the streets and asked different people, tell me about Toastmasters. What do they do? Who's involved? What type of people go there? Everyone is going to have a picture of what that is based on maybe something someone said to them 20 years ago or 10 years ago, or someone they met somewhere. And we all have an impression of something. You know, even down to you, like we're all brands in our own right. I used to actually hate that kind of idea of people being brands before. But if you think about your coat of arms, you know, your family name, your family crest, that's a brand. All of our family crests have logos and values on them. Each color means something, each symbol means something. So brands actually came from people in the first place, and in many respects. Yeah. So even your own brand, what people say about Greg, you know, what people say about Danny and Mick from Westgate and Cork and Bishopstown, you know, the things that we say about them, people have an idea about you. And if you want to shift that, if you want to create an idea about you, Toastmasters, your business, your organization, whatever, then you need to take responsibility for it. And that a lot of the time happens through storytelling. So the challenge I have around storytelling is sit down, have a think about your brand, your personal brand, your organization. And if you can imagine, for the people that don't know me, or maybe the people have a different impression of me, what story do you want to put out there? So for the sake of argument, if I think, well, I'm going to go on this LinkedIn thing for the next 6 months, I'm going to start posting things. I'm going to create an impression about me and my business, my organization, Toastmasters, by posting regularly. I'm going to select a photograph for myself. I'm going to write a bio for myself on LinkedIn. I'm going to start connecting with relevant people. And what I want to do is weave a story about me. So let's stop for a second and think about, what is that story? I'm going to capture that now. I'm going to write out a bunch of things that I want people to know about me. So when Jeff Bezos says, you know, that Greg fella, what's he all about? Well, yeah, oh no, he you know, he's an expert on this, that, and the other. He loves music. He used to have record stores, you know. Okay. So that's the first thing. Before we do anything, let's have a good idea as to what story that we want to weave. The next thing then is we want to capture that story. How do you capture a story in 2021 when we're not meeting people? Not at the moment anyway. And typically, if we want to do business with someone, where are we going to go? Where do you capture that story? When it comes to me as an individual, me as a person with my career, well, maybe that is my LinkedIn account. I should describe your LinkedIn account as being your personal website. Now, that's your personal account. Of course, on LinkedIn as well, you've got your pages for Toastmaster, your pages for your company. So there's two entities on there. There's the you as a person and the entities. Okay. Yeah. So how that's captured, when I go there and I have a look, what is it going to tell me that story? And we're going to talk about that in a while. The next part is making sure that you can be found. Yeah. So I met someone at an event, and actually how we even network has changed. You know, I spotted someone on a Zoom call, and years ago that might have been digging around for an email address and sending that person an email. Of course, what we do now, if there's someone of interest, even when I'm networking, you know, you look at the people in the room, you have another window open with your LinkedIn account, and you're doing a quick little search. You know, that person, Olga Byrne, looks interesting. You know, I do a little search. Is there one Olga Byrne? I have no idea on LinkedIn. Maybe there's a dozen. Oh yeah, I spot her on the Zoom code, and I look to see, where did she work before? Where was she educated? Whatever. What kind of things does she post about? What is she interested in? Yeah. So if you do have an account, I think in a professional basis, in context, it's really good that, you know, you're available on LinkedIn if someone searches you. And of course, if they do, you want them to see the right thing and get the right story. And in terms of the storytelling, you know, you need to be organized and have, yeah, I'm going to push out my story. I'm going to push out my story. Now, a lot of the time when we talk about communications, that's your PR, that's your advertising. So in a Toastmaster context, you tell your story in the traditional way, maybe by advertising, maybe through an email newsletter, maybe by organizing open days or attending networking events, that kind of traditional stuff. But of course, the other way is via social media. And that's storytelling as well. So we get our story, and besides doing it in the traditional way, we're going to push it out via social. And the thing I say to people about it is storytelling, but there's an important part of the social media element of it, and that's the engagement. So when you post something on social media, on LinkedIn, be it you as an individual or you as Toastmasters from a business account. Someone can like it, someone can comment on it, or someone can share it. So just the action of posting something is allowing it for someone else to engage with. As you see, there's two speech bubbles. It's an interaction. You're available for a conversation, for a discussion. On LinkedIn, you can post on your feed, you can post on your company page, but you can also jump into a group and start a discussion. Be the one that leads it. And of course, on social media and on LinkedIn, you actually don't have to be the one to start that discussion at all. You're obviously on LinkedIn, you have connections, people that you've sent a connection request to, and that's all good. There's other people that you may not know that well, and instead of connecting with them, you follow them. Yeah, that's something that you can do now. You can just follow someone. There might be companies that you might like to do a bit of business with, so you've liked their pages. And of course, there might be groups that you've joined. Yeah. So any posts by your connections, people you've followed, companies you've liked, or groups that you've joined, anytime there's a discussion, that'll come up in your feed. And of course, all of those posts are available to you to like, to share, to comment. And the one thing that absolutely happens here is that if Greg has gone to the bother of putting a post on LinkedIn, a little bit of ego takes over here, and that you hope people will comment, you hope people will like it, you hope people will notice it. If I want to get Greg's attention, I'm going to like the post. I'm going to comment on the post. If I want to build a relationship with that person that I've followed, that I've connected with, yeah, I'm going to engage with that person. That's a clever way of doing it. Okay. Yeah. And the last part to the storytelling process is you're just going to protect the story, protect your reputation, make sure you're very clear about the things that you post, either in a Toastmaster context or you personally. So I'm going to go back over those steps again. 1, know your story that you want to tell. 2, make sure that you capture it. 3, make sure that you can be found. 4, that you have a process for communicating. You have an idea and ways to push your message out there. 5, that you're available to engage with your story. And the last thing is you want to protect your story. Okay. So getting down to business, social media, LinkedIn, what can we do? Well, I'm going to make it work for me. And I'm going to start posting. I'm going to start commenting to the extent that you become aware of me. The more I post, the more aware of me that you will be with my connections, etc. It might be in the groups. You don't necessarily have to have a big following to generate awareness for yourself. That's the first thing. And back to that idea, that story that you want to weave. Well, if I'm really, really effective at posting, I've got a good, strong idea as to the impression I want to convey to others. Well, if I do that on a regular basis with a bit of consistency and a good lock-in on my messages, well, I'm going to affect my own personal PR or PR for Toastmasters or my own company in a very, very positive way. The other thing I'm going to use social media and LinkedIn specifically is to get valuable connections for me, my career, my business, and for Toastmasters. And LinkedIn is all about connecting. We saw Ned at the very, very beginning of the session and this idea where he's connecting with people. Yeah, so I'm going to connect with people. I'm going to use LinkedIn for that, and even other social media channels as well. I might use social media and LinkedIn specifically for news and learning. I'm going to follow companies. I'm going to follow the other Toastmaster districts. I'm going to follow different people that I'm interested in, people in my sector, to stay up to date with news and learning, to see what they're posting. Okay. Yeah, I might use LinkedIn, social media generally, to push traffic back to my website, back to my Toastmasters site, back to my company, my organization, or even in the context of a back to your website, could even be your own personal blog. Okay, might do that. And what we might do is we might use social media and LinkedIn specifically for promoting our district. We might use it for recruiting new members. Sponsor posts. We have a big event. We might use social media for that. Okay. So in terms of having a strategy around this, it's good, and going forward into this session, that we think about having an idea around how we want to go about this. So the first thing I'd ask any of you is, what's my objective? If I'm going to spend any of my valuable time on LinkedIn or any of the other social media channels, I better have a clear objective, because I don't want to waste my time. Okay. Yeah. What's my objective here? You might jot it down. Yeah. The other thing, when I am posting, yeah, simple thing. Whose attention do I want? Who's my target audience? So when I'm posting things, am I looking to recruit other Toastmaster, candidates, participants, whatever, members? Am I trying to influence existing members because I'd like to do a bit of networking, maybe get a bit of business, maybe it's for a bit of friendship or whatever? So if I want to get their attention, I need to think about what's their mindset. What's their mindset when they're using social media? And it's funny, we're talking about getting someone's attention. And typically LinkedIn, we're using it from a work point of view in many cases, and we're all busy. But typically, because it is a work type scenario, people will be using it 9 to 5 or whatever, typically. So when you're posting something 9 to 5, it's a good place to get someone's attention, because they probably are checking their LinkedIn messages and et cetera, et cetera. But what's their mindset when they're using it? Yeah, LinkedIn is a business to business type platform. It absolutely is. The one thing that I find, though, is that sometimes it gets a little bit too boring. People are a bit too formal, and there's a lot of people giving you tips and advice about their profession, and it's a bit too salesy. So sometimes that post that's a little bit different can actually cut through and get a bit of attention. I've even found myself, by posting some light things from time to time, you get a lot of traction on them, and that kind of works. I think the messages of Toastmasters will work really, really well in LinkedIn and resonate with people. Improving yourself, self-development, the fun, the camaraderie that you have at your events and all that kind of thing. I think that'd be all very positive. And when you're thinking about your audience and you're thinking about your objective, the other thing I'd like to say to people as well, at the end of that 6 months, back to that Jeff Bezos example, what do you want people to think about you? And if I was to ask you to write those things out, maybe have a few big ticket key messages, yeah, you might just jot them out. Yeah, what do you want people to think of you? Or think of Toastmasters. And what we do then is you organize your social media content around those key messages. So if I want people to know that we're, social media experts, well, I need to start pushing content out to deliver that. If I want people to know the various benefits of Toastmasters, well, I need to start finding ways of putting that out there. If I want people to believe that we have great fun at the events, good camaraderie, well, how do I capture that? Do I need good photographs? Do I need good videos? What do I need to do? Is it blog posts from some of the different members, or what is it? I'm not sure. Yeah. And then when it comes to using social media, you try to use the social media channels that it's like fishing. You go to where the fish are in a professional context. Yeah, that's LinkedIn, maybe Twitter to a lesser extent. From a social point of view, yeah, it would be Facebook, and yeah, possibly a bit of Instagram as well. But for the business to business type messages, absolutely LinkedIn is the one. And when we're using LinkedIn, we need to kind of think, what are we doing here? Are we broadcasting? Is that our objective? I want you to listen to me. Yeah, I'm going to post every day, tell you about what I'm good at, my expertise, my passions, etc. And I do that from my company page, my own personal page. Or am I going to start interacting? Is that the idea? Well, I follow other people and I'm going to do some more interacting, get people to know me through how I jump in on their posts, commenting, liking, sharing, etc. And then I just need a little bit of a plan. I need to get organized around that. Okay. So let's dive into LinkedIn. Yeah, without a doubt, it is that business to business place. There's no doubt about that. It's probably the biggest social media network after Facebook. Facebook is like the monster. It's like your PPS number or your tax number or whatever. Like nearly everyone has an account. They might be using it, but nearly everyone has an account. I think in a business context, nearly every professional has a LinkedIn account. Yeah. So I did ask you at the beginning of the session to maybe keep your mind open as to how we might use LinkedIn. And I want to present a different perspective to LinkedIn that you may not have thought of before, as well as the usual, and we'll cover that as well. And that's from a teamwork point of view. And when I'm talking team, yeah, in your own business world, in your own work life, you might think about your own colleagues and everything else, your work colleagues. And we're going to use LinkedIn and maybe inject it into the culture of where we work, your business, your organization, or in a Toastmasters context. And I'm kind of throwing this as a big opportunity for the organization. Maybe we're going to inject LinkedIn into the culture of how we work and how we interact. There's a big opportunity around it. And this comes from the top down, to adopt this as a way that we interact with people in 2021 in a COVID time, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So I'm going to come back to that in a while, and I'm going to introduce it at different points in the presentation. So I'm going to step through LinkedIn, and I'm going to start at the very, very basics, which probably is that part that I spoke about, is looking the part, you know, capturing that story very, very quickly. And this is all about your presence, how you look on LinkedIn. And it absolutely, to be a bit corny about it, it's putting the best foot forward. And I'm going to approach this in a corporate context and show you how LinkedIn weaves between the companies we work for, the organizations we're part of, and ourselves, and how they all link together. And I'm going to step through something very, very typical. Okay. So I was asked to do a presentation for a bunch of solicitors a while back. Yeah, big firm, big firm. It looks like they're called Beauchamp, but they're actually, it's pronounced Beecham's. So typically you go to their company page and you have a look, and yeah, very professional. This is their LinkedIn page, nice branding and everything else. You can see their header, you can see their logo, Irish Law Firm of the Year 2018. And of course, I've got the option of following them. Yeah, so I might follow them and I might click on their website. But it also tells me they have 189 employees. Someone that I know called Edward works there. That's okay. So I'm going to go, and they have 3,704 followers. By the way, from our work with clients, when it comes to followers, you know, how many followers do you have on Twitter? How many likes do you have? How many followers do you have on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn? LinkedIn, for some reason, for the clients that we've been interacting and working with, even government organizations, the numbers have been ramping forward in the last 12 months, in many cases without an awful lot of effort. So yeah, I think there's opportunities there. So I look at the company, that's fine. And I look at some of their posts, and what I saw was they put a post out 2 months ago, and I'm like, okay, you're a big solicitors firm, very progressive and all that kind of thing, but that's fine. Great video featuring John White. We see that in blue. So when they put that post in, they use the @ symbol, @John White. That's fine. And of course, when we do that and we post it out, John will get a notification on his LinkedIn account that he was mentioned in a post, so he can share it then or comment on it or whatever. Managing partner of Beecham's, and Leinster Rugby CEO Mick Dawson. And of course, you see those two things are in blue as well, because when they created that post, they did an @ symbol. So if I click any place here where it's in blue, I'll go to the Leinster Rugby account on LinkedIn, or John White's personal profile, or Mick Dawson's personal profile. At the exciting announcement that we would continue as official legal advisor, #proud sponsor. So they've used that hashtag. And one of the things with social media that you'll notice is that when we're busy scrolling, apparently the kind of avid social media users are thumbing through up to 350 feet of posts a day on social media on their smart devices, their smartphones. So you want to catch someone's attention very, very quickly. So the things that catch my attention here are the pieces that are in blue and where they use the hashtag. What I like, and it's like a personal thing, a private thing or whatever, I like when you use a capital P and a capital S, because often I find when a hashtag is more than one word, yeah, they just run into each other. Ironically, when you post something now on LinkedIn are suggesting hashtags that you might use, and they're never capital P, capital S. I like to do that because I think they're read easier. So when you use a hashtag, it draws attention to what this is all about. Yeah, so if you get a special message to use in your post, yeah, it's good to use a hashtag. Try not to use more than one. That's what I like to do. The hashtags can help you to be found, but they also help you to communicate a message. And of course, in this case, their message was that we're a proud sponsor. Any of the things in blue, as I said, if I click through any of them, I get to see those posts. If I click the hashtag proud sponsor, anytime anyone anywhere on LinkedIn use that hashtag, I'll see all of those posts. That's okay. I also see some information about the company. This is all from my LinkedIn account, where the employees live, the 189, where they studied. Okay, clever bunch. I also see what they do. So you can see here on the left, legal, entrepreneurship, operations, where they studied. Okay, or sorry, what they studied. It's a lot of information for LinkedIn. A lot of information about that company. It gave me their employee count. 165 employees, average tenure 6.9 years. That's not too bad. In the last 6 months, they're down 1%. In the last year, they're down 1%. Over 2 years, they're up 18%. So obviously, quick period of growth, but in the last year, not so much. Now, this was a strange one, where it actually gave me the distribution of the teams by kind of, function within the business. So the legal guys down 5%, but operations and admin up 14% and 17%. And we know that their employee numbers dropped. So I'm thinking, what's going on here? Lots of admin staff and fewer solicitors. That's not a good sign. This was all available to me just by clicking through on LinkedIn. Like, okay, that's kind of like a scary story. New hires is a bit of a trend there. So you see that kind of bottomed out towards the end of 2019. So what I got very, very quickly was a team picture. And it's not an accurate picture. It's just a culmination of all of the individual LinkedIn accounts who worked there. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm assuming they have a lot more than 165 or 169 employees. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. LinkedIn just tots them up, but it tells a story about that organization. It told me a story that they have loads more league or admin staff. I'm not sure if that's true or it's not, but that's the story, and I form impressions from it. So everything that's in LinkedIn accumulates. It's telling a story. I was doing a presentation to a big architectural firm, and they were just pitching for business with some American company who were building a big new plant in Ireland. And they were really excited because they noticed that the CEO on LinkedIn of the company in the States was checking out the LinkedIn account for the CEO of the architectural firm in Ireland. So he was really excited. They must be interested in it. I just said to him, look at your account. And I said, how many people do you employ? I said, well, we employ 40. Okay. On LinkedIn, it said they employ 16. Very successful company, award-winning projects, all this kind of thing. And when we looked at LinkedIn, the CEO, God bless him, obviously he doesn't use LinkedIn a whole pile. There was no mention of these projects. He wasn't posting on LinkedIn. His own personal photograph was something like a wedding. Now, he didn't quite have a pint of Guinness in his hand, but it wasn't far from it. Didn't look very professional. And he was in the horrors when all of a sudden I said, obviously you made a big presentation to this company in the States, and yet what you see on LinkedIn is a story that's totally different. So you need to take responsibility for the story that you're telling. And in a work context, in a professional context, we go to LinkedIn as the first place to verify anyone's CV, their career, their education, you know, what they're passionate about. I mentioned earlier that sometimes not all of the posts have to be heavy. So this is a post that I put out on LinkedIn a while back. Down in Killarney, there was an event we were involved in over a World War II hero called Hugh O'Flaherty. If there's anyone in Kerry in the room, the Vatican Pimpernel, the Scarlet and the Black, the movie. So anyway, we met Prince Charles, and I put that post out, got loads of likes, comments, etc. Last year, I put up a little video that we took on a staycation little break that we did, got loads of likes. I thought, that's interesting. So even when you go down the person route and stand out a little bit, people connect with you. People like people. It doesn't always have to be about work. So back to this company, the people who work there. Well, top of the tree, I see Imelda Reynolds. She's a second degree connection of mine. And when you're on LinkedIn, two things travel together all of the time. Your name and this one-liner that you have that describes what you do. In her case, Imelda Reynolds, chairperson and partner at Beecham's. The firm's name is there. So when I do a search for her, I'll see those things. When she posts something, I will see her name and her role. And vice versa, if she comments on my posts or whatever. It also tells me, because she's a second degree connection, I'm connected to her through these people. Ron Emick, Brendan Foster. Maybe I'd like an introduction. I might get onto some of those people. It's given me the opportunity over here to connect with her. Okay, so I can press that button and try and connect. Shelley Dana, second degree connection, executive administrator, doesn't say where she works. Sean O'Shea is a partner in the firm. Come on, Sean. Yeah, put in your firm name. You know, fill out your account properly. Do that for me. We have the little gold symbol here, which means he's a premium account. Okay, so he's not operating off the free account LinkedIn. He's got a premium account, and we'll talk about that later as well. Edward Evans down here, partner at Beecham's. He's a first degree connection. Because he's a first degree connection of mine, I can send him a message. So you need to be connected to people to send them a message. If you're not, you can't. You need to connect with them. Unless you're on that paid premium account like this guy, Sean, whereby it does allow you to send a message, or an in-mail is what they call it. But that's limited. They don't want you spamming people. So even if you are on a paid account, they only allow you so many in-mails in a month. The exception to this message and connecting or whatever, if I'm in a group on LinkedIn, like Dublin Chamber or something like that, and Sean O'Shea is in that group on LinkedIn, if we're both in the same group, LinkedIn will allow you to send someone a message. So it allows you to do that. That's another argument or another reason why you might join groups on LinkedIn. It gives you access to people. Okay. Yeah, another bunch of people. Catherine Irwin. Now, she's gone a bit further, just saying where she works. She's a partner and head of family law and private client group at Beecham's. That's a nice piece of information. So not only do I know where she works, I see that little piece of expertise that she has. That's clever. She's a second degree connection, etc., etc. Okay. So let's dive a little bit deeper. Let's click on some of these people. Imelda Reynolds, second degree connection. Now, there's loads on the call, so I'm not going to stop and ask anyone or anything, but I will ask you a private question. What do you think? Imelda, the solicitor, chairperson and partner at Beecham's. What do you think? What do you think of the photograph? Do we judge people by the photographs? I don't know. I think we do. In particular, when it's people we'd like to do business with. The thing I say to people about LinkedIn is you don't need a professional photograph, but you need a great photograph. And for me, a great photograph is someone where you capture them smiling or whatever. And I think that's a great photograph. The other thing she's been very clever at is she has got onto her graphic design team in the company and said, listen, can you give me a banner? Yeah, that talks about my company. Okay. That could be Toastmasters. It can be, you know, one of the favorite places you like to visit or whatever. Try not to leave the blank generic background that LinkedIn will give you. Try and put something that says a little bit about you, that tells you a little bit of your story. Yeah, try and fill out your little line here. Yeah, I can send her a message. Yeah, I can actually send her a message. I think in that case, I think she is actually on a member of the Dublin Chamber group, so it allows me to do that. Down at the bottom, it tells me there's 55 mutual connections, and you both worked at Dublin Chamber. Okay, we didn't work there really. We're just involved in the organization. So that's a really good account, I would say. She used the logo. She's wearing the team shirt. The only other thing I noticed is that when you're on LinkedIn, every single person has like your own web address on LinkedIn. And what happens when you join is that LinkedIn will assign you automatically a URL. And it typically will look like this: your first name, your surname, and a bunch of numbers and digits and hyphens and all that kind of thing. You can actually customize that. You can actually customize that for yourself. So you have a unique URL that hopefully will just be your name. Now, if there's more than one Imelda Reynolds in that might be a problem, but you can customize that for yourself. I think in a business context, a lot of people would like to get to know more information about the people that they're dealing with. So one of my little tips or one of my tricks is include your LinkedIn URL as part of your email address, and maybe not let it be Imelda Reynolds 5568765. Maybe just customize it if you can. I can show you how to customize it. It's an easy thing to do. So we have Catherine Irwin, who's part of the same company. She's a second degree connection. She's the lady who went to that bother of itemizing where she was. You can see Beecham Solicitors, UCC. Okay, she was in Cork as well. And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, you should have spoken to the graphic design people and taken that banner as well. That would have been really, really good. But that's okay. That's okay. Do you remember that URL thing I spoke to you about? Her URL was a little bit different. It said Urban Solicitors. I'm going, okay, you're actually working with Beecham Solicitors now. And I think, okay, and I'm guessing maybe you worked for yourself for a while and maybe you came over to the company. But that's interesting. All that information was available to me. If I'm in Beecham's, I'd be saying, you know, Catherine, it might be time to change your URL or whatever. That's okay. Within LinkedIn, it gives you a number of opportunities to describe yourself. And what I'm going to do, the parts I showed you for Catherine and for Imelda were the things you see at the very, very top of the tree. And for the most part, most people aren't going to scroll down below that. But the parts that I'm going to show you, you'll see in chronological order for anyone that you go in. So LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to include a little bit of a summary, you know, about Greg, about whoever. So how do you describe yourself? A great tip that I was given about that is that if someone deals with Greg right now, what do they get? You know, your quick, it's not quite your elevator pitch, but a little bit more. You know, person in marketing, background in business, had his own, you know, entrepreneur, et cetera, now specializes in, has his own podcast, blog, whatever. Okay. So you might think about your own paragraph or two if you haven't done so. You go into your LinkedIn account, there's a button there and it allows you to add information about yourself. Once you go beyond that, then it'll say, what's your activity? And your activity basically is anytime you write a post, anytime you like something, anytime you share something, anytime you write an article, that will feature on your account. So what LinkedIn is presenting to people is the things you have an opinion about. You know, what's this person made of? What do they talk about? What are the typical issues, the typical subject matter that they get engaged with on LinkedIn? Okay. So my question for you is, what story do you want to weave out there? So consider your activity and your post. So when someone comes to your LinkedIn account and they look at your activity, what are you telling them? Are you just someone that shares other people's posts the whole time? Are you just someone who comments on others? Or do you have an opinion? Do you put out your own posts there? Do you write articles? If you're an expert on something, that's something that you might do. So even people like Richard Branson have activity on there. Sometimes he's sharing posts about climate crisis. Sometimes he's sharing posts about entrepreneurship. Sometimes he's sharing articles about the fastest growing companies. But sometimes he's publishing his own articles on LinkedIn. And in this case, it was a post about climate change. And like everyone else, like all of us, people can like it or people can comment on it exactly the same. So my question is, what story do you want to weave on LinkedIn about yourself? And if I have a look really, really quickly, what story do I see? And then it goes through your CV. Okay. Where do you work? What organizations are you a member of? So I'm guessing in most of your cases, you obviously have a career. You might be self-employed. You might be working for someone else. And yeah, put down information about that. Obviously, Toastmasters would be part of it as well. So that can form part of your experience. So in Imelda's case, she's a board member of St. Vincent's University Hospital Group. I'm not seeing a logo here. So, and I'm fairly sure that St. Vincent's University Hospital Group is an entity on LinkedIn. So maybe she was just a bit careless when she was punching in that. So when you include anything, just make sure you get the right spelling and everything else and if it does exist, you'll see the logo popping up. Okay. I'd be kind of saying to Imelda, listen, you're a board member of a very prestigious hospital. You might give me a paragraph or give me a few lines as to what that's about. This is your professional CV. Tell me your involvement there. The Institute of Directors, you're there 2 years, you're a council member. Well, what does that look like? You're a chartered director. What does that look like? Give me a bit more information. Okay, tell me something. So when it comes to Catherine, you can see, this is Catherine Urban, if you recall, head of family law and private client group. Come on, give me a bit of information. Now the story reveals itself a little bit. So obviously before these 6.5 years, she was the owner of Urban Solicitors. And she did put a bit of time and effort into describing what she did there. She's going into quite detailed custody, guardianship, access, surrogacy, paternity, adoption, etc. Okay, I can see you're really an expert in family law. You give me more information. If I'm thinking of going to a solicitor's practice that specializes in those things, and they suggest a number of partners to me, well, I might go onto LinkedIn and just check to see if I can get any bit of extra information about some of these characters, and maybe I'd like to do a bit of business with them. For some reason, when I was presenting this to the group, and again, it was pre-COVID, a lot of people in the room, there was I was feeling a little bit icy when I was talking about Catherine. It actually turned out that she had left the firm. And when it came to coffee break, one or two of them, they weren't saying it to me, but actually they were saying it to me, said, she doesn't work here anymore. How can we get her off? Can we complain to LinkedIn? No, you can't. LinkedIn will do nothing about it. You need to get onto Catherine and tell her to update her LinkedIn profile. So anyone who declares that they're working, that they'll appear in that account. Okay. Some of the solicitors there gave them marketing, they had some marketing staff there. They started giving out to them that, how the hell could you allow this to happen? Saying, listen, LinkedIn works that way. Nothing I can do about it. Okay. Whatever picture you portray, that's the picture that LinkedIn will present to people. Imelda, her education, etc. So yeah, quite an educated person. Okay. Now we're going a bit deeper into each of their accounts. So when you go onto LinkedIn and when you start describing your role, what you do, the different job experience you've had in different places, LinkedIn is quite clever. It'll automatically, depending on your role, etc., and the information you've given it, it'll automatically assign some keywords that are associated with different professions. And they're available for people who come onto your account to endorse you. Okay. So you can see here that Imelda has been endorsed 54 times for corporate governance. And what's more, I can actually see the people who did that. I know this guy, David Duffy, you know, I presume he knows Imelda to endorse her for those things. So I could actually go on and say, listen, David, thinking of using Imelda for corporate governance, what do you think? You seem to have a personal experience of her. Yeah, 23 people for legal advice, mergers and acquisitions, 20. Okay, it's giving me a lot of specific information. One of the things here is that besides LinkedIn assigning you some specific words, when you go onto your own account, and if you notice that there's a skill that you have that doesn't appear on this list, that you'd like to appear on your list, maybe it's a new skill that you've acquired. I've been doing podcasts for 2.5 years. I'm not even sure if that's on my LinkedIn account. You can actually go in and you can add that skill. And that then is available for other people. Also bear in mind the actual words that they use. We were working for an accountancy firm and they have one of the top taxation specialists in Ireland. And on his LinkedIn account, the word that was down there was tax returns. And I'm sure that's a very routine thing for a lot of people, bookkeepers, etc. But in his case, he was one of the top guys. So, you know, I don't know, tax compliance, tax schemes, whatever. But the word that needed to be in there was something a little bit higher than tax returns. So it was giving an impression that he was a bit kind of low down the food chain when in fact he was one of the top guys in the country. So the question is, are those the skills that you want to be endorsed for, or do you want to add other ones? I spoke to you about injecting LinkedIn into the culture of Toastmasters. So how about your colleagues in Toastmasters and people are really progressing, people are presenting very well. How about, you know, when you know someone is very good at a particular skill, going to their account on LinkedIn and maybe endorsing them for something that you know they're really good at, and you know that, you know, through the work you're doing at LinkedIn or in Toastmasters, be it, you know, event management, be it networking, be it project management, be it, you know, the speech making, etc. Okay, presenting. So we're injecting it into the culture. So now I'm on LinkedIn and I'm after seeing one of my colleagues, one of my fellow members has endorsed me for a skill. Wow, that's pretty cool. And of course, the people who come to my account will get to say, oh my God, that's really cool. You're in Toastmasters, are you? That's really good. That seems to be a really great place where they're teaching people skills and they're endorsing them for it. Yeah, let's inject it into the culture. So when we come away from one of those events, one of those meetings, and someone has done some great work, yeah, maybe we can inject it into the culture. And besides giving someone a pat on the back, maybe we might go onto their LinkedIn account and endorse them for a skill. Okay. Now, this is Premier League giving someone a thumbs up, which is actually, instead of pressing a button saying Kathy is good for corporate governance or whatever, we're going to go a stage further. And I'm actually really going to put my name against that person. So in this case, and Catherine's case, you can see that Ivor Bowden, the managing director of Prudent Financial, was quite happy to write out a full recommendation for Kathy. We've used her a few times and I recommend her to friends. We've had positive experiences for the work carried out. I look forward to working with her again. Geraldine Charlton, as a family law practitioner, I've dealt with Kathy in both litigation and collaborative cases. She works hard for her clients, always seeking the best outcome for them. Tough litigator, etc., etc. They are gold. Do you remember at the beginning we were talking about the referral network? And the Rolls Royce is someone vouching for you. if I'm contemplating using Catherine for something, and I see that people who are clearly professionals recommending them, that's absolutely huge. So in a Toastmaster context, if we think about injecting LinkedIn into the culture, when we see some of our colleagues and our peers progressing really, really well, is it something that we might do? That we give someone a recommendation? You know, whoever, Danny has been a colleague of mine for a number of years in Toastmasters, total professional, dedicated, great project manager, etc., etc. We're injecting it into the culture. And the thing is, when you write those recommendations, other people see them. What's this about? Oh, wow. I can really see how Toastmasters made such a big difference to someone. I've injected it into the culture. Okay. So my suggestion is to be proactive. And you do that in two ways. One, you might be proactive about writing recommendations for people. So if I'm connected to someone on LinkedIn, and by the way, if you write a recommendation, you have to be connected with them. So I go onto your account on LinkedIn, onto your profile. There's a button on the right-hand side that says more. And when I click on the button that says more, it gives me a number of options. One is endorsements and one is recommendations. So I might volunteer a recommendation for someone I'm connected to. Okay. The other thing that I might do, I'm in Toastmasters. I did a great presentation the day before. I had a great night or whatever. And someone came along to me and says, "Oh my God, that was fantastic, Greg. Well done, you know, or well done with the organization, the project, with the event." You can all hear my dog, and I really apologize. Someone has come to the door, and he, in no uncertain terms, is telling them what he thinks of them. And I promise you, it'll be quiet in a minute. And I do apologize. I'm very sorry. I just hear thanks a million, so that person is leaving. I really apologize. Okay, so what you might do in that scenario, when someone is giving you a big pat in the back saying, "Listen, thanks so much, but I'd really be honored if I could get a recommendation from you on LinkedIn. Would it be okay if I could ask you to do that?" And LinkedIn has a lovely process for doing that. Okay, and I can talk you through how all of that works. But you're bringing it into the culture. The other thing on your profile is if you have accomplishments, you know, you can put down there, like in Catherine's case, she did a course, she did a language, she ran a project. You can add accomplishments. I know another, yeah, the language, you saw that one there. Okay. There's another aspect to LinkedIn, which is pro bono work or voluntary work. You know, that's another thing that you could put in there. And I'd be encouraging you to itemize the work or document the work that you do with Toastmasters as part of that. And I think a lot of employers these days specifically even look for those extracurricular work that people will do. It says a lot about someone if they're happy to do something on a voluntary basis somewhere. Okay. Let's take a look at the time. So the last thing with Imelda is the interest that she has. And this is typical of some of the accounts that she's following. Okay. Institute of Directors, UCD, et cetera, et cetera. So what these two individuals have done is that they've created a picture about themselves that other people can see. And it's a very powerful picture. And that opportunity is available to you when you go on LinkedIn and to be able to do that. So at the beginning of the presentation, I asked you about what story do you want to tell? What story do you want to weave? And you're the master of that, really, and to put time and effort into doing that. You know, it is your personal website, your personal professional website for yourself, pretty much. Okay. So that was the first stage. The next stage I want to talk to you about is connecting and following. And of course, LinkedIn is all about connections. That's the way it's built. And at the very, very beginning, I was chatting to you about my my very robotic friend called Ned. And how Ned is on LinkedIn, I'd nearly be suggesting, and this might resonate with a lot of you, might be a way of describing your LinkedIn activity. I'm on LinkedIn, but I don't really have conversations with anyone. I have an account there. And I know that loads of my other colleagues have an account there as well. So we were all told to do that. And I might have, might have a low number of connections, a big number, but I don't really use it a whole pile for connecting. That for me is like going on a train journey, and a business train journey, you're in first class or whatever, because you want to get a bit of work done. And your laptop is plugged in. Someone comes along, they sit alongside you, and someone else sits alongside you. You want to be polite, so you nod your head and hello. And that's it for 2.5 hours until you get to your destination. And you hop off the other side and off you go. And that carriage was full with people. No one did any networking, but it was the business carriage. And in many cases, you might even see the same people doing the same journey the following week, but no one talks to each other. I think in many cases, that's what LinkedIn is like. So I want to jump away from that. And what I want to think about is LinkedIn is a place where we're really going to connect with people. I'm actually ashamed of some of my language that I used to use about LinkedIn in the early days when I was kind of training. And I'd say, and I'm ashamed now when I said it, I used to say to people, this is just like a game of numbers. Yeah, as many numbers as you can, connecting with people, click, 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 but you're not connecting, they're just numbers. Of course, you come to Greg's account, oh my God, fantastic. He's so many connections, that's brilliant. They're not connections, they're just numbers. I'd like to make them connections. So when we're approaching LinkedIn and connecting and interacting with people, I just want us to move our thought process along a little bit. So like my robotic friend, Ned, I want to get away from that. I'm going to make a golden rule. I'm going to stop pressing buttons. Someone comes along, they want to connect with you. I'm not just going to press that button anymore. I'm going to do a bit more than that. When I do connect with anyone, I want to do it sensibly. I don't want to be spamming anyone. If I don't have a valid reason for connecting with someone, I'm just not going to do that. I might follow them first. Yeah. And by the way, that wasn't an option on LinkedIn up until 2 years ago. And what you're finding is that all the social media channels, they're all copying the best features of the other one. So now on LinkedIn, if you don't know someone, instead of making a fool of yourself and sending them a connection request, and what you might do instead is just follow them. So when you start to see their comments, then you might start interacting with them. And if you do get a bit of engagement going, you might then send them a connection request. Yeah, so it's all about connecting sensibly. Don't make a fool of yourself. Back to that idea of it being your brand, like Jeff Bezos was saying, you don't have a bad brand. Oh my God, someone's spamming you from a particular company or organization. The other thing I'd like to do is let's have a conversation. So when someone sends you a connection request, and maybe they didn't even add a comment to it, you need to make a decision fairly quickly. Will I connect with that person or will I not? They've gone to the bother at some level of doing a search, finding you for whatever reason. And if we decide, yeah, they look relevant, I'm going to accept them as a connection. What I might do is jump to a conversation. I'm going to hit the button, the bit on top. I know I said stop pressing buttons, but I'm going to bring it to a conversation. So I get a connection request from Mick White in Bishopstown, and it comes through to me, and I go, okay. So instead of just hitting accept, I'm going to hit another button that says message. Hi, Mick, how are you doing? Thanks a million for connecting. How have you been getting on during these whole COVID months? Yeah, have a great week. 9 times out of 10, he'll come back to me and he'll have a conversation. And maybe he won't, and that's fine as well. And in that case, I know it wasn't a serious connection request. So always trying to bring it to a conversation because I want to connect with someone. If I'm on a Zoom call with colleagues from Toastmasters, and there was someone new I was having a bit of chat and a bit of banter with, yeah. So I do my little search on LinkedIn and I spot them. I'm not going to press that button. I'm going to do the search. I'm going to look for Olga, going to do the search, going to come there. And when I find her on LinkedIn and it offers me very tantalizing that button that says connect, I'm going to hit connect. but it's going to allow me to do something else. It always comes up with an option that says add a note. And do you know, this is about a person-to-person thing. I'm going to absolutely add a note here. Yeah, hi Olga, great shooting the breeze with you. I love the conversation we're having at the session today. If you don't mind, I'd love to add you to my network on LinkedIn. Have a great day, have a great week, or whatever, a great weekend. Yeah, we want to bring this to a conversation. So now Olga, instead of getting that generic connection request, she's actually getting something a little bit personalized. And immediately that message will stand out above and beyond everyone else. One of the pieces of things that I say to people, and I think you might have got it in the bit of information beforehand. When you have platforms and opportunities like LinkedIn, there should never be a reason to cold call anyone. LinkedIn gives you the opportunity to warm call. So before I ever try to sell my wares to you or to see if you're interested in something, I'd like to connect sensibly with you. I'd like to have a conversation. I'd like to build up a little bit of rapport. And with a bit of intelligence, then I might try and, maybe do a bit of business. I'd love to chat to you about this sometime. You should never have to cold call when you have LinkedIn. You should try and warm call if you can. So when someone does thank you, when someone connects with you, let's thank them. Yeah, thanks a million for connecting. Okay. So the piece I want to finish with today is thinking about internal stakeholders as well as external stakeholders. So a lot of the time on LinkedIn, I'm thinking in context of people, external people I'd like to do business with. So from an internal point of view, when I say to you that let's inject it into the culture, so maybe where you work or your organization, or more importantly with Toastmasters, that we're going to inject it into the culture. So when a new member joins, maybe we'll all automatically say, let's look for them on LinkedIn, send them a nice friendly message. Yeah, hi Greg. We're delighted you joined as a member. We hope we can get to know you, and let's make the membership really, really fruitful. We're looking forward to your conversations and everything. Hi Greg. Yeah, had a quick peek, enjoyed our little quick chit chat. Saw you on LinkedIn, you had an interesting career. I'd love to hear more and get to know you a bit better. So let's inject it into the culture. And suddenly when I'm a member, and you know what it's like joining a new organization, how does this work? What does it feel like? What are the people like? The minute someone puts their arm around you and, reaches out and makes you feel welcome, all of a sudden you're thinking, my God, that's the best thing I ever did. I'm so delighted I joined that place. So what I'm going to do now for the last 15 minutes of the session is maybe take a few questions, and we can do the kind of part 2 of this presentation the next day. Okay, my question master, Danny, what have people been saying at all? Or have they been saying anything? Will that curly-haired Cork guy please shut up?
No. Daniel says one of the challenges he has is deciding who he is. How do I present it on LinkedIn? So he's a research fellow at Cranfield Uni who runs and interacts with peer groups, or am I a Toastmaster who runs and interacts with Toastmaster groups, or am I a blend or a muddle? So how do you avoid that muddle, and what advice would you give?
Yeah, so my advice is you're presenting yourself to the world. You've got that one-liner, and use that one-liner in the way that works best for you. And I think obviously you've got a career, but obviously you're part of a fantastic organization. So I'd be inclined to put both in my little tagline. And if there's any conflict there, that best yourself,
And Julie just said she finds messages too soon a bit creepy.
Oh, I see Elizabeth waving. Good to see you again, Elizabeth. She finds messages a bit creepy. I think connection requests from people I've no idea, where there's no message at all and no context, I find that a little bit odd. If and make sure your message isn't a creepy message, and find your own way about that. You know, like if I said to Elizabeth, "Oh, thanks a million for connecting. I looked at your photograph on LinkedIn. You look like a fine thing." Yeah, that might be a little bit creepy. Yeah, you'll probably discover fairly quickly when they disconnect you, or they unplug your connection, that you've been a bit creepy. So don't do that again. What I find is that if someone comes on heavy, the minute you've connected with them, and boom, straight away they're in for, and they're trying to sell something. Typically I go, listen, yeah, you're not trying to sell. Get to know me first. Some people are really afraid of the salesperson coming on straight away. Now, I used to get upset about that as well, but at some level, we're all trying to sell to someone. And sometimes it might be just a case of, yeah, hi, Danny, thanks a million. I appreciate the offer, but I'm well sorted in that area, but I do appreciate you reaching out. And because even how you interact with others is kind of part of your brand as well, and the company that you represent, and and the organization that you represent. So that kind of reflects on Toastmasters. If someone was being very rude to you or whatever, that's not going to work,
Yeah, I mean, another question that's linked to that is from Nikki. And they say, what about replying to a connection message where someone is cold calling? How is the best way to handle that? You don't want your reputation to be tarnished, but you don't want to be rude.
Yeah, I guess you can ignore it. And I think the person who's doing the cold call probably knows that they're chancing their arm. If I don't even know that person, and I'm trying to sell something to them, or else maybe just enhance your own brand by simply saying, listen, thanks a million for the offer, but I'm sorted there, and I'm fine. But thank you for reaching out anyway. You've enhanced your own reputation by doing that.
Yeah, and Sue, hang on a minute, Sue, you've just disappeared up my list.
I am here.
Oh, go on then, ask your question. Make your statement, Sue.
Yeah, I gave myself a few rules that I would, because I used to connect to everyone and anyone, because that was something I was taught to do when I was first in business, but now I don't anymore. And I'm very selective about who I connect to. So I have to know them, have to have had a conversation with them in real life or in virtual life before I actually do that. So I get now, because I've built up such a big network, I get constant people trying to connect with me, and I don't know who they are, so I just ignore them all because they look like they're trying to sell something. Like, for example, yesterday I think I got one from somebody from a franchisee in the fitness business. I'm not really in the fitness business now, so they clearly haven't read my profile properly, because I'm not more into experiential marketing, which is totally different field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I've just got to trawl through all those and politely decline them. Yeah.
And Sue, one of the slides I put up at the beginning when it comes to your social media strategy is your objective. Mm-hmm. And I think if you think through your objective, like, why am I on LinkedIn? And if that's just for Toastmasters work, well, you behave accordingly. If I want to do it to publicize my business, then you might have, I'm going to connect with everyone. your objective might be a little bit different. Yeah, and I think it has to be down to your own objective. Like in my case, I'm always thinking, well, let's be polite to people. You're out there in the world doing business. You never know where a lead comes from. You know that John Jantz book I spoke about? Someone somewhere hears something, oh yeah, I remember that guy talking about, social media, LinkedIn, whatever. So you might get a gig somewhere or a referral, and sometimes you just never know. But for me, no, I don't connect with everyone either. But I will, if I don't know where someone is from, I might take the few seconds to just have a quick look at their LinkedIn profile. So, okay, that's a bit interesting. And a lot of the connections will absolutely never go anywhere, but they don't do you any harm either, for the most part, you know.
And I'm going to mention something else here, especially for women. I don't know how many women are on the call, but I did get stalked once by some weird people on LinkedIn, and they were clearly stalking me for whatever reason. So that is just something to be aware of.
Yeah,
You're not.
you can block them, and I can show you how to do that. You can block them and report them, and disconnect them. Just kill your connection to them. You just remove them as a connection. Yeah.
And this happens on Facebook as well. You get people trying to connect with you that are clearly not proper people or proper profiles. Yeah. So it's just being wise to that, so you can protect your own integrity and feel safe in that environment.
LinkedIn, for the most part, Sue, is a really professional environment. And, you know, I'm not saying you won't get that on there, but you'll definitely get it on the likes of Facebook and Twitter and stuff like that. But LinkedIn, for the most part, you should get very little of it. It's funny, actually, I had a client, a solicitor, a male, and like that, he kept on calling it LinkedIn instead of LinkedIn. But I'm saying, you know, be very good for your business and all that kind of thing. And I managed to get him up and running on it. And within a week, he had a female stalker from, I think she was a professor in UCC, and she obviously liked his bald head. And so he thought, this is nothing but a dating site. And I'm like, oh my God, you know, and he thought I was bad for recommending it to him. I think he was just a bit unlucky with the first,
my goodness,
1 or 2 connections that he got. Yeah. I've never been stalked by a woman on LinkedIn. So.
And sorry to interrupt. Justin Barry, I think you're probably going to deal with this next week, but he asks, is it a good idea to set up a Toastmasters club on LinkedIn? And if that works, how would you kickstart it?
Yeah, it absolutely is. It's a good idea. And I can take you through how to set up a company page and all that kind of thing. Yeah.
And that you cover that next week?
Yeah, totally. Next week, I'll be covering how to start connecting with people, how to boost your numbers, how to find people on groups, how to find people on companies. We can even get into advertising and stuff like that, and how to start posting on LinkedIn and getting attention to yourself. So I'll cover all of that.
Okay. And Saruba Gurgul said, they're a sergeant at arms at Toastmasters Club. Where do I put my Toastmaster experience, in voluntary work or work experience?
Okay, it's a really good question. I think there's a special section for voluntary work, and you can, and that's more about capturing that you do voluntary work. But if the organization is set up like that company page, and then you just literally put in, you add it to your experience. So it's probably a bit of both, actually. It's probably a bit of both. You saw on the board of on the few examples we looked at, in Imelda's case, she was a board of directors somewhere. Yeah, so you just add that there. The best thing to do actually would be for the Toastmasters to have a LinkedIn page, and you record your own work as being involved with that in whatever capacity.
Okay, and somebody else has just, Idara has put, she puts the Toastmaster officer as volunteering. Nigel Skellen, he thought it was really, what you said was thought-provoking. It's a fine line between presenting your brand organization or spamming your connections.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as individuals, when you're on LinkedIn, one of the best ways to learn is to have your own radar as to what annoys you and what doesn't. And when you feel you're being spammed, well, you just need to mirror your own behavior based on how you feel when people are interacting with you. By the way, you heard me talking about that cold calling. I've spoken to people on there who they just do that, in a serial way, and they'll tell you it actually works. If I see that guy, Johnny Banks, works in a company, and if I sell particular products, I go to him, no messing, bang, and I send him a message. I sell tires, the best tires in Ireland. Will you buy my tires? And no messing. And he says that it works for him, but I don't know. I don't really like that approach. I think it's better to do a bit of warm calling first.
Elizabeth has got a question about culture. Elizabeth.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. Hi, Greg. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too. You're my favorite.
This question of culture, which we have discussed before in the strategy, is really important, and it's something that we're trying to get to grips with. But it really is easy to say, it's not easy to do in practice. So I wanted you to say a bit more about that, either today or next week, because if this is to become a reality, I think we need some more, a bit more substance about it.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And in a way, I don't want to complicate it in any way. I really don't, because it's not complicated. And I'm going to talk about it today because I want you to think about it and bring those thoughts to the next week, and maybe even start doing it between now and the next day. Is that LinkedIn is a brilliant way to connect with people. It's not Twitter where you're just following someone. It's not Facebook where you're sending someone a friend request. It's not Instagram where you're liking their lovely pictures. It is connecting in a professional capacity. So with that in mind, and when you talk about a member organization, you're absolutely built for it. So when you get a new member, and like, I think everyone has a career somewhere. My idea, like if I want to welcome you to my club, and I've shaken hands into saying, oh, brilliant, I connect with you on LinkedIn. And as part of the onboarding, I'm not sure if I'm using the right words, but maybe that the onboarding of members is that the other colleagues, or maybe the people who run each chapter or whatever, that you might just reach out to someone. So when Mary Martin Cassidy joins, you just, send her a connection request on LinkedIn. Delighted you joined Toastmasters. We're looking forward to meeting you. If I get a friendly welcome like that, I'm up and running and I feel brilliant about the organization. And of course, when Elizabeth and Mary start interacting, your contacts start to see that interaction. Oh my God, you're in Toastmasters. That's fantastic. I can see you're having great fun there. And all of a sudden we're posting pictures at events and all that kind of thing. So now we're using it to actually make connections. And I'm sure a lot of people join Toastmasters to network and maybe even do a bit of business somewhere along the way. That might be a great thing, as well as learning and everything else. And maybe as a question, could you see any issue with that? So just at that onboarding level to bring that into how you actually work and all of that kind of thing. At meetings, I'm sure when there's, and obviously you're doing a lot of this stuff on Zoom, but even in a face-to-face context, when a new member joins, does someone stand up and welcome the new member?
We do. We welcome them. We may send them a WhatsApp message. There's certain things we do, but I think the thought of using LinkedIn is really good. But I think it's something you've got to get embedded, as you said, in the culture. Yeah. And we had a new member who came last night to our club, and I'm going to see if they're on LinkedIn and try it out, because I think it's a brilliant suggestion.
And maybe even in the words that you use when you welcome someone, we'd like to a big welcome to Danny Banks, our new member today. You might all reach out and even connect with him on LinkedIn. If you bring that into your language, before you know it, it's an automatic thing that you're doing at events. I find at Dublin Chamber events, when we were going, you would barely have left the room and your phone is pinging with people that you had met there. It's nearly something people automatically do. In the good old days, we'd get the business card, you go back to your office, you send someone an email. No, I'm finding that's been replaced by the connection request on LinkedIn.
Okay, thanks for that question. There are a couple more questions, but we have gone over time. So what I'm going to suggest is I'll just want to thank Greg for tonight. And then if anybody wants to, are you okay for another 10 minutes of questions?
Yeah.
If people have got some burning questions, or if you want to leave, that's fine. I'd just like to say a big thank you for Greg tonight for taking us through that. Looking at the comments people have put in chat, it has obviously been a very thought-provoking discussion tonight, and a lot of people are thinking about, you know, how they go about it. It certainly made me think. But for me, some of the things that you said, Greg, about storytelling, deciding what your objective, your purpose is, thinking about the mindset of your audience, are really all things we as Toastmasters should be good at, because that's what Toastmasters is about. It's about telling stories, you know, and we're taught to think about the audience, and we're taught to think about what's the purpose of our speech. So I can see a lot of transferable skills over using LinkedIn. So thank you so much for that and for your time. And I will see everybody back next week for LinkedIn Part 2. And if Greg is okay to be around for a few more minutes, if people want to ask questions, that's fine. If you want to leave, I'll see you next week. And thank you for coming. And thank you for your time.